Hello everyone and welcome to the fourth episode in our CSS variables mini-series. Now in this video I will be covering variables for responsiveness. Now responsiveness as a general web term means that a website that is responsive is able to change its view or become viewable for any screen size, including if you're viewing it on a computer, if you're viewing it on a TV, or if you're viewing it on a mobile phone. It will look consistent and it'll look good on all three, is generally the meaning of what a responsive website can do. So basically that can be achieved in a number of ways, but one of the ways is combining media queries, which media queries in CSS I actually haven't covered yet, or I think I did cover in my Intro to Web Development course, or my Intro to Web Development tutorial series. I had one episode on responsive styling, and that allows us to apply certain styles depending on the size of the website. And already looking at that, we can pair that with variables to supercharge and kind of make the whole system much better or much easier to work with at the very least. So we're going to go ahead and explain these concepts. Now, the first concept I want to explain is variables change, obviously. If you have done, I think, Algebra 1 in math, you'll learn that in math, variables are generally kind of symbols or letters that hold numbers, or at least in math, that's what they do. They hold numbers or hold functions or something. And in CSS, they're not that much different. They are basically symbols or phrases like fade, or remember we used main color in a previous episode, that hold a value of some sort. And in that case, it held a RGB color code when we use the main color variable. Now, remember, we can use variables to hold anything, including numbers. We could hold it, you could make it hold a pixel value to hold the size of something or the length of something or something like that. And up until now, if you take a look at our CSS, variables are set once or twice maybe. Main color is this, and then when we come and specify in the dark section, the main color is changed maybe. But for the most part, variables are only specified once or twice, and they don't change throughout the website. If I move to a different section, generally the variables don't suddenly start, the colors don't start going rainbow normally, at least. And that's a concept, that's kind of unique to CSS, because generally in other programming languages and in the use of variables themselves, they change over time and their value doesn't stay static. So we can actually introduce a somewhat sort of changing aspect to variables in CSS as well, to specify changing styles and changing sizing as the screen changes itself, its size. So that's basically what variables change means. They do change over time generally. So one of the first examples that comes to mind is using variables to specify a grid styling or to supercharge a grid styling. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to our grid code. And remember, if you ever are wanting to see any of this code, it is on the link in the description that says all the code in my videos. It'll take you to that, and that little thing I just used was my snippet manager, which I also made a tutorial series for recently. It's called the Snippet Manager Node.js tutorial series. So if you come here, you can view my code and come here, say for example, to the CSS mini series animations, and you can check out all of the code that I've written here in these videos. So that's pretty cool. And then there's even the little in this video, these things that I'm making here. So yeah, feel free to check that out at any time, pause or whatever. So like I said, we're going to go ahead and copy the episode 6 code from our CSS grid mini series. So I'm just going to grab this. I'm going to delete the index.html and style.css from the previous episode and go ahead and copy these two in to here. Copy the index.html, copy the CSS, and then perfect. Now we have our website all set up. And I'm going to reopen them here. So now that we have this, I'm going to go ahead and start up our live server just so we can see the changes as we make them. And oops, okay, so sometimes this happens, and the reason why this happens is I should have addressed this earlier. If you are not selecting an HTML file when you hit go live, it'll take you here, and then you just need to navigate through your files to find the right folder, which we're on this episode. So now we have the code that we're looking for. And remember, this grid layout will grab a random image every time we reload. So right now we have a pretty static kind of grid layout here. And I'm actually going to only be mainly editing this inner grid here. These, let me find the code that specifies it right here, the main display grid. It has 3 columns, 1 fraction unit each, and 50 pixel rows. Now, as a quick recap, we're going to create a media query. Now, again, I should probably link a card in the top right to that episode where we talked about media queries in my introduction to web development if you're not familiar. But basically, we can write media, I believe all and then like we could say max width is 500 pixels, and I don't know how 500 pixels. I'm trying to think how wide that is. Probably maybe 1,000. We'll try that first. So 1,000 pixels, and then for now, let's just make sure this is working. So let's reselect main, and let's make its background color red. So, okay, perfect. And that's actually a little bit off. So what happened here is, let me change this to maybe 200, right? That'll remove it, yeah. So let's change it to 500, perfect. So basically what this means here is I'm saying media, and a media query is basically asking our website questions. You can think of it like this thing is asking our website questions. So media all and is just the way to start the media query, and our actual substance goes in between these parentheses here where we're saying max width 500 pixels. And what that means is these styles inside this media query will be applied when the screen's width is less than 500 pixels. For example, if I hit inspect here, it'll make the screen a little bit smaller, and it's still not quite there, but we keep making it slightly smaller, and as soon as, look right here, at the top right there, do you see the little pixels thing that's kind of shifting? As soon as we hit 500 pixels, it will go red, just like that. So notice our media query is basically continuously asking our website, is this screen less than 500 pixels? Then apply this style. And we can actually use that, for example, to change our grid template columns to 200 pixels. I'm just making a random example here. But one thing that we can actually also do is, instead of messing around with the actual CSS properties, we can add variables. And if you remember, to add variables, we select the root, and then we can say grid columns, and then we can say repeat 1fr 3, I think, or is it the other way? Nope, it's 1fr 1fr. So this is our grid columns variable, and I forgot the dash dash before it. And then to actually use it, again, we can simply, well, first we can come here and then comment this out. And instead of using repeat 1fr, we can just change it with the variable dash dash grid columns. And notice nothing changes. But the cool thing is now we can actually use media queries to change the way our grid looks based on the sizing of the website. So I can say dash dash grid columns, or column, I think I put an S, yeah, grid columns, and then I can put repeat to 1fr, and I'm not sure if this will work itself right away. It might, but it might not. Nope, it doesn't work right off the bat, and I think that's because I have this media query below the main. Although, I guess I'm missing something here. 1 second. So grid columns is, well, let me first change it to a pixel value. So I'm just troubleshooting here. I think I messed up the formatting somehow. So I'm going to quickly just use an online reference. So it's the CSS override variable. So let me just come here and just review the lesson, because maybe I messed up something. Right. And then, okay. And then to override a variable, yeah, that's what I'm doing. I might be messing up the way I'm doing it though. So again, we're troubleshooting here, because what if you ran into this issue and you can't figure out? So this is the thought process that you're viewing right now. First, I'm checking CSS overriding variable, which is what we're trying to do, but it's not working, so media query maybe. Getting dynamic CSS variables and media query, so this is an article. Let's just skim through this. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Max width input. Okay. Yes. There it is. See, I made a small little mistake in terms of my writing. So instead, I was updating the grid columns variable in main here, but I noticed now I actually have to update it in root. So if I change this to root and I save, it should update. There we go. Perfect. And instead of 100 pixels, I want it to be repeats to 1FR, which will make it 2 columns instead of 3. So notice what happens here. So I make it bigger than 500 and we get a third column. Notice that third column is right over here. And try not to zoom out. Let me add, yeah. So notice there's 3 columns here. And when I get it below 500 pixels, it automatically switches to 2 columns. And that is because we are updating our grid columns variable when the screen gets to a certain size. So of course that is kind of the concept of variables for grid. Now, we can use a similar concept when using flexbox, which I might actually skip this because the variables for sizing is much more important. So variables for sizing is another concept that we can use, and this can be used to basically clean up our styles a lot. So to start off here, let's go ahead and just add some styling maybe to make our content more uniform. And what I'm going to do is, once again, sorry, I'm just explaining different concepts, and to do that I will need to use different kind of projects. So I'm going to copy the code from the previous episode once again, and I will reload here, and this is where we left off on the previous episode of this series, and I will just edit this code here. So basically, as you can see, we have some uniform styling, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some sizing to our website. So for H1s, let's just say we want the font size to be 30 pixels maybe? No, okay, let's make it 50 pixels. And let's make the P's font size, our paragraphs font size, maybe 20 pixels. Let's make it 14 pixels actually. No, slightly bigger, 16. Perfect. And then let me see, what is that last bit that we have? It is an H3. So let's just edit the H3 to have a font size of 30 pixels maybe, or yeah, 30 pixels sounds about right. Nope, a little bit too big, 24. Okay, perfect. So now we have all of this styling. So we've specified the styling on our website. And again, remember using the media queries here, at media, all, and then max width is maybe, let's just make it 600 pixels for now, or let's actually make it 500 so we can demonstrate easy. Max width 500 pixels, and then we can add a query. And if we wanted to change our font sizes to become smaller as the website gets smaller, we could do this. We could re-put all of these and then change it to smaller values to maybe 30 and then 14 and then maybe like 10 or something. Let's just try those and notice again. So yeah, when our website is this big, when it gets smaller than 500 pixels, the text will all become smaller and it'll be easier to read, say on a mobile phone. Now this is fine, but this is not like the perfect solution really, because you can also use variables to clean this up a ton. This kind of comes to another topic, which is called another unit called rem, R-E-M, and it's a relative unit that is used for kind of changing it's another sizing unit basically that is more preferred to pixels directly. So for now, let's just make this 2.5 rem, and then let's make an H1 like 4 rem, and then let's make the paragraph 1 rem. And notice what happens is I'm going to, for now, I'm going to remove these styles here. So again, I just reload here, and this is what we get. And I think I messed up this styling a tiny bit. What is wrong here? The paragraph is really big. Oh, yeah, that is weird. Oh, it's because, okay. Let's make it 2 rem maybe, or 1.5 rem. So basically, again, a rem is just a different size, and it's called a relative M unit, which it's relative to the root unit. So if I say font size is 1 pixels, notice everything gets really tiny. And if I say font size is 10 pixels, everything gets bigger. If I make font size 15, so basically a rem is relative to the font size in the root. And this is actually, we don't necessarily have to use we don't necessarily have to use variables here, but if I wanted to, we could say a variable is -- site font size is maybe 14 pixels to start, and then the font size is the variable itself, site font size here. And then what we can do is in a media query, again, we can update the root variable, site font size is maybe 30 or 10 pixels, and notice what happens again. So as we get smaller, everything just gets smaller along with it, and this allows us to clean up our styles a ton. And the benefit of using the variable itself instead of just setting the font size is we get a higher degree of control, in addition to if we wanted to base something else, maybe like make a special text thing, and instead of using rem we wanted to say font size to be exactly our site font size, we can still use that variable like normal site font size, just like that, and we would be able to use it. So that is kind of variables for sizing. And notice again, we're using these REMs, and then we are using the variable to set the font size, and then we can update it when the media or when the screen gets smaller than a certain size. And again, we can actually also use min width to apply styles on bigger screens or max width, and you can really take this in many directions, and that's really up to you where to go from here. So that was pretty much all I had to cover in this video. If you want to see more videos like this, especially for our CSS variables mini-series, you can check out the playlist, which is linked in the description, where I'm currently uploading daily. If you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for notifications whenever I post new videos. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.